Okay, so now for this bracelet, it does take, you know, a substantial amount of beads, but there's nothing carved in stone saying that you have to use all these beads. I just liked it because I wanted to do something with ocean beads. And I did collect a few ocean beads over this past several months. So let me show you what we're going to use today. We're going to use one of these conch beads, and I believe this is a Swarovski. This one here, it's a conch bead. Conche, or however you say that. I am using some 6mm round crystals in this as well. And you can kind of just see what I'm doing here. This came in packages of 4 and this came in packages of 6. So this is the whales and these are the dolphin charms. And they're just silver plated, they're not silver. And all I did was I went online and I went to the bead stores like Fire Mountain Gems, Beadaholique, and Art Beads, and typed in seashell crystals, fish crystals, dolphin, whales, and shells of all kinds, a starfish, because there is a starfish crystal, and it's right there. So that's a Swarovski crystal. And I kept them all within the blue and aquamarine colors. So I'm going to use these fish that came like this in 2 packages. And they are Swarovski crystals. So I'm going to use those. I am going to use some bigger crystals. Bigger round ones, but in an aquamarine color. So I showed you the blue, there's aquamarine color, turquoise, or whatever color you want to call that. And that's a blue fish that I have dangling off of the end of my charm bracelet, because I only have enough to make 2 bracelets with. So I just hung it off as a little charm on there. And we've got some starfish. I've got 2 left of those. And I have some square cube Swarovski crystals in an aquamarine color, which I thought would be nice to use on the bracelet. Add some more sparkle. And then we have these shellfish. And these are just glass beads. They're not, I think they're check glass beads. And same with these. These are check glass shells as well. They're not Swarovski crystals, these seashells. Okay, so that's basically all I'm using in this bracelet. I just used doubles to make it look like a lot. The only thing I didn't use double was this big conchi bat shell. But I used doubles of, like, these ones are doubles. I just kind of randomly put them in places so they weren't together. Anything wasn't together, so I just did it like that. Okay, so that's it for beads. I will find a way to show you how to make this bracelet in flowers, keeping with the summer theme. Now for findings, you will need a clasp, a closure, and I'm just using a lobster clasp. So that's a lobster closure. You will need your chain, and I'm a roller chain person, so I'm using my roller chain, and I've cut off already a length that I need, and I'm making this bracelet for my daughter, so it's got to be fairly small. You will need some bails. I am using bails. These are for the charms that are the big ones, like the fish, the starfish. These require bails. I don't like to just stick a jump ring into that because I'm always afraid that that's just going to break. So I always use a bail on these Swarovski ones. You will need some head pins. So I am using 2-inch head pins because we're going to do some wire wrapping with some of these beads. And you're going to need some 4mm jump rings, and you will need quite a few. And I'm using 4mm because these are my strongest jump ring, so I'm going to use the 4mm. So I'll just take out a bunch there, and I'm also going to use an oval closure, an oval jump ring, a big one, to hook my lobster clasp into as well. So this is what you will need to make your bracelet. Now you will need all your tools, your cutters, your chain nose, and your round nose pliers, and that's it. And your chain. You can use whatever chain you want. You don't have to use the Rollo chain, but I just find the Rollo chain to be easier to work with. So let me put out all my stuff and come back and show you what to do next. Okay, so first off, you've got all your beads all laid out on your table. And we want to prepare all our beads before we actually start to put our bracelet together. And by means of that, I mean like getting everything all ready to just hook on with the jump ring. So this is what we're going to work off of today. I've got everything set up here, but I haven't gotten anything put together. So what I did with this big bead is I took a split, an eye pin or head pin, and I just started to make a circle. And the reason I wanted to make a coil is because this bead here has a huge hole in it right here. So the hole is really big in this. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a big hole in here, and this head pin would have went right through it. So all I did for this was did the coil to prevent it from coming through the bottom. So I left it just dangling. Now what you're going to do is take your finger or your pliers and bend it back like so. So you've given it a little bend in the wire. It's not a 90-degree angle bend. And then you're going to take your round nose pliers and set them to wherever you want your hole to be, or the size of your hole. So I'm setting it right about there on my round nose. And then you're going to fold it over all the way so it's bent like this. Then you're going to take your pliers, turn them upward like this, and then you're going to wrap your wire around like so. Then you're going to keep those grasped in your hand, because now we're going to take this end here and we're going to wire wrap it around the shell. So what it requires that is to grab your chain nose pliers here. You're going to take this and you're going to do a couple of wraps around. And I'm trying to do it so I'm not bending the eye pin or head pin way out of shape. Oops, so you can't even see that. Sorry. You'll see the next one. I went out of camera view. And you're wrapping this around. And then you're going to take your cutters. You'll see some more because this is not the only one I'm doing. And then just trim off right about as close to the edge as possible up against your wrap. And then you have this little piece of wire sticking up like that. Do you see it there? This piece here? You need to squish that in. So trying carefully to hold up your shell. We're going to pinch that in there somehow. I had a difficult time with it yesterday. There we go. I managed to get it in there as good as it's going to get. And now I'm just going to straighten out my head pin. So this one is ready to go on the bracelet. So we'll set this one aside. For the starfish, I used a bail, like I've told you. I like these bails. The only thing is I don't like these things because they make the bail way too long, so I just cut them off. And I just used the bail. So for the bail, here, I just stick my pliers in here, push the bail open, put my starfish hole in one end because they have these little teeth on them. Push my starfish in there and I can close these bails with my fingers and close them up. These are actually sterling silver bails. And then I'll use my chain nose and give them a little squeeze, not too tight because you don't want to crush your bead. And that one's ready to go now. See? And for the conchi, or this shell here, I'm not sure what this is, I used a head pin. And I went through the bottom of the shell like that. And then I used a big crystal on top, like so. Then I took it and bent it that way, like so. Took my pliers. Again, I want a fair size hole, so I just bent this over top, like that. Gave my pliers a turn and bent it this way around. So now I'm going to stay grasping my my piece, holding it in my pliers as tight as I can, okay, and taking this end here and I'm going to wrap it around. So I'm going to wrap once and I'm going to wrap until it gets where it's really close to the bead without busting the bead, and then I'm going to trim it off. And again, we have a little piece there, so this is where you want to kind of push that in. And tuck it underneath. And make sure your head pin is good and straight. And that's that one done. And it's wire wrapped. So you know you're not going to lose that bead unless your jump ring falls off. Then I took 3 of these blue ones. And I did 1, 2, 3 blue ones. And again, I did the wire wrap method, where I bent it over my finger like so. Okay. Grabbed this in my hand, pinched it right about there, wrapped it over here this way, turned my pliers this way, and then finished wrapping the loop around the pliers like so. Okay, so you have this big long piece sticking out, and that's the piece you're going to use for wire wrapping. So I continue to hold it and I just switch my hands because it's easier for me. Then I take the top loop like this, the top loop, top of the eye pin, and I just wrap it around as close as possible. And I did 3 wraps with that. And then trim it off the excess. And then take your little piece that's sticking up there and tuck it in there under as much as you can without cracking your bead. And the only thing is they keep turning on me, so I'm having a hard time closing that. About snapping that bead. There we go. These can be a bit tricky. It's still not tucked underneath, and I can't seem to get it tucked. Doesn't want to without chipping the bead. I did that yesterday when I was making this bracelet. I squished that in and crushed this little tiny fish bead at the top and busted it. So I'm trying not to do that again. Alright, I think that's as good as it's going to get. So that one's done now. That's ready to hang on your bracelet. And then I took one of these beads and I put a 6mm on top of the cube bead, and I stayed within the aquamarine color. And again, I did the wrap, stayed within the length here. Alright, so we've done all this. Now we're going to wrap this around twice, 2 or 3 times, however much you can, till you get close to your bead. And then I'm going to trim that off. And then I'm going to squish that in place. And of course that one went nicely. So that one's done. This one's finished. Now I've got the fish one left, which I haven't showed you, and this again is pretty thick bead. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure why my camera's over there. This one here's pretty thick bead too, so you got to use a bail for that. You should use a bail for it. Alright, I just take my pliers, stick them in, and pry it open. And you're going to have to open this quite big for the fishy to get the fish in there. And that's still not opened enough. Open it a bit more. There we go. Slip your fish in there. Give your bail a close with your fingers as much as you can. And then use your pliers to continue closing off your fish. So now your fish is ready to be hung as well with the bail. Now let me show you one more time how to do these, just because, oops, need this guy. Just because my camera wasn't quite focused on here. So what you do is you take your head pin, put your beads on it, give it a fold, grab your round nose pliers, make a loop around your pliers like so, give your pliers a turn and finish off your loop like so. Okay? Keep holding your pliers in that loop. Keep it snug, nice and tight. And now you're just going to take the end of your excess wire and you're going to wrap it around, staying at the bottom as many times as you can. And then you're just going to cut off the excess wire. And then you're going to close off the hole. Or close off, push that piece of wire underneath and make sure your loop is nice and straight. Okay, so that's it for that one. One more time, and that's where we used 3 of these. So we'll take 3 of these crystals. Put them on. Give it a bend with your fingers. Round those pliers, grab them. Make a loop wherever you want on your pliers, as big as you want. Wrap it around your pliers. Give your pliers a turn and finish off your loop. So it looks like that. Keep holding it in your hand. Grab your chain nose pliers. Grab your excess wire and wrap it around. 1, 2, and I'm not going to get it a third time. And then take it off and trim off the excess. And I try to get it as close to the piece that I wrapped. And this is the one that gave me havoc before, because it just turns and turns and turns when you go to squeeze it. And push. Has to be an easier way. There we go. Got it. So now this one is done. So we've got that wire wrapped. And then we've got the 2 cubes done. We need to do the conch, or this shell here. So we'll take this one, string it on, string on a big one, and bend it over. And do the same thing. Oops, I don't want a hole that small. Or a loop, I mean. I don't want my loop too small. So wrap it around like that. Turn your pliers. Finish your loop. Looks like this. And I just switch hands. Take my pliers and start wrapping. And snip that off. Sometimes these pliers can't snip it off close enough. Wish they could, but they don't. And push that in. And that's it. That's it for wire wrapping. I'm not very good at wire wrapping. I really suck at it. It's not my practice. Some people are so good at this, they just give it a squish and they're professionals. There we go. I can't get this to go underneath. So I really don't want it to snag clothing. There we go. Now it went underneath. There we go. That's good enough. Now for these little guys, all I did was put jump rings on these, and as we hang them on our little chain here, all our pieces, we will put jump rings in there. So let me finish putting bails on those 3, and then we'll have everything all ready to go and just be hung on our bracelet. So I'll be back.